The phone call came at midnight. Catherine's hand trembled as she reached for her mobile on the nightstand. The palace never called this late unless something was terribly wrong. William stirred beside her, his eyes opening in the darkness. Yes. Her voice was barely a whisper. The words from the other end made her blood run cold. The Queen's health had taken a sudden turn. The family was gathering, but there was something else. Something the aide's voice couldn't quite hide. Tensions were boiling over. Doors were being slammed. Voices were being raised in hallways that had stood silent for centuries. William was already out of bed, pulling on clothes with the practiced efficiency of a man trained for crisis. Catherine watched him, her heart pounding. She had known this moment would come eventually. They both had. But nothing could prepare you for the weight of a crown that wasn't yet yours, threatening to crush you before you ever wore it. If you want to see how this incredible true story unfolds, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss what happens next. The drive to Windsor was silent. Rain hammered against the windscreen, each drop catching the headlights like tiny falling stars. Catherine's mind raced through everything that had brought them to this moment. The years of scrutiny, the constant comparison, the endless headlines that painted them as either saints or villains, depending on the day. She glanced at William. His jaw was set, his hands gripping the steering wheel with white knuckles. He looked exactly like his father in that moment, and it terrified her. "We'll get through this," she said softly. He didn't answer. He didn't need to. They both knew what was waiting for them at the castle. Not just a family in crisis, but a monarchy teetering on the edge of irrelevance. The public was losing faith. The scandals had piled up like kindling. One more spark, and everything could burn. The palace gates loomed ahead, iron and imposing against the storm. Security waved them through without the usual pleasantries. Even they could feel it. The air itself seemed charged with electricity, as if the very stones of Windsor were holding their breath. Inside, the corridors were too quiet. Catherine's heels clicked against marble floors that had witnessed coronations and funerals, celebrations and catastrophes. But tonight felt different. Tonight felt like an ending. They found Charles in the blue drawing room, standing at the window with his back to the door. He didn't turn when they entered. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then he said 5 words that changed everything. "Don't know what to do." Catherine had never heard him sound like that. Defeated, lost. This was the man who had waited decades to become king, who had endured mockery and scandal, who had rebuilt his reputation brick by brick. And now he stood before them, stripped of all pretense. William moved first. He crossed the room and stood beside his father, not touching, but close enough to matter. "Tell us what's happened." Charles turned. His face looked older than Catherine had ever seen it. The lines around his eyes seemed carved deeper, shadows pooling beneath them like bruises. The polls came back tonight. Approval ratings are at an all-time low. 23%, William. 23% of the country believes the monarchy should continue. The number hung in the air like a death sentence. "There's more," Charles continued, his voice cracking slightly. The Prime Minister called private conversation. He said Parliament is quietly discussing contingencies. What happens if public support drops below 20%? What happens if we become more trouble than we're worth? Catherine felt the room tilt. This was worse than they'd imagined. This wasn't just family drama or tabloid fodder. This was survival. William's voice was steady, but Catherine could hear the tremor beneath it. "What about the others?" "Harry Andrew." Charles's laugh was bitter. "Harry's in California, giving interviews about how terrible we all are. Andrew's lawyers are still trying to keep him out of the news. Anne's doing her duty as always, but one person can't hold up an institution." "Camilla?" He trailed off, shaking his head. "What about Camilla?" Catherine asked. "She thinks we should abdicate. Let William take over now. She says the public might rally around younger leadership. Fresh start. New generation." Looked at his son. "She might be right." The words landed like a bomb. William stepped back, his hand instinctively reaching for Catherine. She took it, feeling how cold his fingers were. No, William said firmly. Absolutely not. I said, no, Father. You've waited your entire life for this. I'm not taking it from you because of bad polls and political pressure. We fight. We show them why the monarchy still matters. Catherine's heart swelled with pride and terror in equal measure. This was the man she'd married. The man who would be king. But he was also asking them to stand against a tide that might drown them all. Charles studied his son's face. And if we lose, if the people vote us out, if we're the generation that ends 1,000 years of history, then we lose fighting, William said. But we don't give up before the battle even starts. The door opened. A private secretary entered, phone in hand, face pale. Sir, I'm sorry to interrupt, but there's been a development. The Times is running a story in the morning. Front page. Anonymous palace sources claiming deep divisions in the family. They're saying the institution is collapsing from within. Catherine closed her eyes. Of course there was a leak. There was always a leak. Someone inside these walls, someone they trusted, was selling them out. Who? Charles demanded. The secretary hesitated. They won't reveal the source, but the details are specific. Whoever it is has access to private conversations. Inner circle. William's jaw clenched. So we have enemies outside and inside. Perfect. The secretary left. The three of them stood in silence, the weight of centuries pressing down on their shoulders. Catherine thought about her children, sleeping peacefully in their beds, unaware that their entire future was being decided in this moment. We need a plan, she said quietly. Both men turned to look at her. We can't just react anymore. We need to go on offense. Desk. Asterisk. William looked at her with something like hope in his eyes. Charles simply nodded. Waiting Catherine had never wanted to be the one to save the monarchy. She'd married for love, not duty. But somewhere along the way, duty had found her anyway. She thought about the walkabouts, the people who lined up for hours just to shake her hand, the letters from children, the mothers who told her she inspired them. Real people, real connections. The problem isn't the monarchy itself, she said, pacing now. It's that people don't see us as relevant anymore. We're symbols, but symbols of what? The past, wealth, privilege. We need to show them we're symbols of something that matters today. How? Charles asked. We stop hiding behind protocol? We stop being so careful all the time. People don't want perfect. They want real. She turned to William. Remember when you talked about your mother's funeral? How you said you regretted not showing more emotion because you thought you had to be strong. William's expression darkened at the mention of Diana, but he nodded. That's what people remember, Catherine continued. Not the state dinners or the ceremonies. They remember the moments when the mask slipped, when you were human. So what are you suggesting? Charles asked. We air all our dirty laundry. Have a therapy session on national television? No, Catherine said. But we stop pretending everything is fine when it's not. We acknowledge the challenges. We show vulnerability. And most importantly, we demonstrate why monarchy still has value in the modern world. The room fell silent again. Through the window, dawn was beginning to break over the castle grounds. Pale light crept across ancient stone, revealing a world that looked the same as always but felt completely different. William spoke first. What if people see vulnerability as weakness? They won't, Catherine said, with more confidence than she felt. Not if we're strategic about it. Not if we pair it with action. Real, meaningful action that changes lives. Charles walked to his desk and sat down heavily. The charity work we already do isn't enough. It's never been about quantity, Catherine replied. It's about connection. When I visit a children's hospital, I don't just shake hands and leave. I sit on the floor. I play with the kids. I hold the mothers while they cry. That's what people remember. That's what matters. She saw something shift in Charles's face. Recognition, perhaps. His own mother had been the opposite. Careful and controlled, never showing too much emotion. It had made her respected but not always loved. There's something else, William said quietly. We need to deal with the leak. If someone inside is feeding stories to the press, nothing we do will matter. They'll spin it, twist it, use our own words against us. Catherine's blood ran cold. She'd been so focused on the external threats that she'd almost forgotten about the enemy within. Someone in this palace, maybe someone they saw every day, was betraying them. "We set a trap," Charles said suddenly. Both Catherine and William looked at him in surprise. "We feed different information to different people. See which version ends up in the papers. It could take weeks," William protested. "We don't have weeks." "Then we start immediately," Charles said, standing up with renewed purpose. "Catherine's right. We go on offense, but we do it smart. We control the narrative before someone else does." A knock at the door interrupted them. The same secretary from before entered, this time with a tablet. "Sir, you need to see this. It's already online." He handed the device to Charles. Catherine and William moved closer to read over his shoulder. The headline made her stomach drop. "Palace Insider, Royal Family in Crisis, as William and Charles clash over future of monarchy." The article was detailed. Too detailed. It mentioned this meeting. It mentioned the polls. It mentioned Camilla's suggestion of abdication. Someone hadn't just leaked information. Someone was in real time reporting everything they did. William's face went white. "That's impossible. No one knew about this meeting except us." And he stopped. They all stopped, because the realization hit them at the same moment. The leak wasn't from a staff member. It was from someone much closer. ***, Catherine's mind raced through the possibilities. The meeting had been called urgently. Only family had been informed. The secretary who brought the news couldn't have had time to leak it, which meant someone in the inner circle, someone they trusted completely, was feeding information to the press as it happened. "Where's Camilla?" William asked, his voice tight. Charles's face hardened. "She's not the leak." "How do you know?" "Because I know my wife," Charles said coldly. "And I won't entertain accusations without evidence." The tension in the room became unbearable. Catherine stepped between them, her voice calm but firm. "This is exactly what they want. Whoever is doing this wants us to turn on each other, to destroy ourselves from within." William ran his hands through his hair, a gesture of frustration she knew well. "Then what do we do?" "We assume nothing is private," Catherine said. "Every conversation, every meeting, every decision. We assume it's being watched and reported. So we use that." Charles tilted his head, interested. "Go on. We craft the narrative we want," she explained. "We have conversations knowing they'll be leaked. We plant information that serves our purpose. We turn the leak into our weapon instead of our wound." It was risky. Dangerous even. But looking at these two men, both struggling under the weight of impossible choices, Catherine knew they were out of options. Conventional approaches had failed. The monarchy was dying by 1,000 cuts. They needed something bold. What kind of narrative? William asked. Catherine thought carefully. One of unity, of strength, of a family that's facing challenges but refusing to break. We let them leak that we're fighting, yes, but also that we're fighting together. Against the real enemies? Apathy, irrelevance, the forces trying to tear us down, and the abdication discussion, Charles asked. We let that leak too, Catherine said, but we spin it. You didn't reject the idea out of hand. You considered it because you care more about the institution than your own ego. But you ultimately decided to stay because the country needs stability, not upheaval. She could see both men processing this. It was manipulation, certainly, but it was also true. Every word of it was true. That was the key. They weren't lying. They were just carefully controlling which truths got told. There's still the problem of public perception, William said. Even if we control the leaks, we're still at 23% approval. We need to give people a reason to care. Catherine nodded. We announced something big, something that can't be ignored. A major initiative that directly impacts ordinary lives. Like what? Charles asked. She'd been thinking about this for months, actually. Ever since she'd visited that housing estate in Manchester and met families, living in conditions that shouldn't exist in a wealthy nation. Children going hungry, Parents working 3 jobs and still unable to make rent. We create a foundation, she said. Not another charity that shuffles money around. A real foundation with teeth. We use royal properties that are sitting empty. Convert them into community centers. Affordable housing. Job training facilities. We put our money and our land where our mouths are. The silence that followed was different this time. Thoughtful rather than tense. The National Trust would have a fit, Charles said, but there was a hint of a smile in his voice. Those properties are heritage sites? Some of them are, Catherine agreed, but others are just sitting there, costing money to maintain, serving no one. What's the point of preserving the past if we're not building a future? William was staring at her with an expression she couldn't quite read. Pride? Surprise? Maybe both. When did you become a revolutionary? He asked softly. When I realized that being safe wasn't keeping us safe anymore, she replied. A phone buzzed. Charles checked it and his expression changed. Camilla's awake. She's asking why we're all meeting without her. Catherine exchanged glances with William. Bring her in, she said. If we're going to do this, we need everyone on board. No more secrets. No more divisions. Charles made the call. 5 minutes later, Camilla entered in a dressing gown, her hair hastily pinned up, eyes sharp despite the early hour. She took in the scene immediately, so she said, sitting down without ceremony. We're having a crisis meeting about the crisis, and I'm the last to know. Lovely, it's a leak, William said bluntly. Someone's feeding real-time information to the press. The Times already has details about tonight. Camilla's face didn't change, but Catherine saw her grip tighten on the arm of her chair. And you thought it was me, oh, Charles said quickly. Too quickly, as Catherine said at the same time. She ignored Charles's glare. We considered everyone. We had 2. But now, we're moving forward together. Camilla studied her for a long moment, then smiled thinly. I like you, Catherine. You don't pretend. Asterisk, asterisk. The next 2 weeks were a blur of secret meetings and carefully orchestrated moves. Catherine coordinated with legal teams, architects, and community organizers, building the framework for what they were calling the Royal Futures Foundation. William handled the political side, smoothing feathers with Parliament and managing the delicate balance of constitutional propriety. Charles surprised everyone by throwing himself into the project with unexpected enthusiasm. Perhaps it was the chance to finally do something meaningful with his platform. Perhaps it was desperation. Either way, he worked alongside them without complaint. The leaks continued, exactly as Catherine had predicted. But now, they were leaking information they wanted leaked. Stories about late-night strategy sessions, about passionate debates over how to modernize the monarchy, about a family united in purpose. Even when they disagreed on method, public opinion began to shift. Slowly at first. A percentage point here, another there. But shift it did. The announcement was scheduled for a Thursday morning. Catherine stood backstage at the community center in East London, checking her appearance one final time. The dress was simple, blue, accessible. No diamonds. No crown. Just a woman about to make a promise she intended to keep. William came up behind her, placing his hands on her shoulders. Nervous, terrified, she admitted. Good, he said. That means it matters. Through the curtain, she could hear the crowd gathering. Press, community leaders, families from the estates they'd been visiting, real people whose lives would be directly impacted by what they were about to announce. Charles appeared, straightening his tie. Security says we're ready when you are. Catherine took a deep breath. This was it. The moment that would either save the monarchy or expose them as out of touch, aristocrats playing at relevance. There was no middle ground anymore. They walked out together, the 3 of them side by side. The flashes were blinding. Questions shouted, but Catherine kept her eyes on the families in the front rows. A young mother, holding a toddler, an elderly man who'd lived in social housing for 40 years, a teenager who'd written to her about his dreams of becoming an engineer but couldn't afford university. These were the people who mattered. These were the people they were doing this for. William spoke first, his voice steady and clear. For too long, the monarchy has been about looking backward, preserving tradition, maintaining the status quo. Today, we're announcing a different approach. He outlined the foundation: the conversion of royal properties, the investment in communities, the job training programs and affordable housing initiatives. As he spoke, Catherine watched the faces in the crowd, skepticism giving way to interest becoming hope. Then it was her turn. She'd prepared remarks, but standing there, looking at those faces, the prepared words felt hollow. So she spoke from the heart instead. "I know some of you are wondering why you should trust us," she said quietly. "Why should you believe that people who live in palaces care about your struggles? The truth is, you shouldn't, not based on words. You should judge us by our actions." She paused, gathering her courage. "I also know that the monarchy is an imperfect institution. We're figuring this out as we go, trying to balance tradition with progress, duty with humanity. We make mistakes. We're going to keep making mistakes, but we're asking you to give us the chance to do better, to be better." The room was silent. Catherine's heart pounded. Had she gone too far? Admitted to much weakness? Then someone started clapping. The elderly man in the front row. Others joined in. Not polite applause, but real, genuine appreciation for honesty they hadn't expected. The press conference continued for another hour. Questions were sharp, sometimes hostile, but Catherine, William, and Charles faced them together, not hiding behind protocol or palace spin. When they didn't know an answer, they said so. When they'd made mistakes in the past, they acknowledged them. It was exhausting, terrifying, liberating. Afterward, in the car back to Kensington, William let out a long breath. "Well, we did it. For better or worse, we committed." Catherine checked her phone. Social media was exploding. The response was mixed, as expected, but trending positive. More importantly, the tone had shifted. People were engaging, debating, caring. The apathy was breaking. "Look at this," she said, showing William a thread. "Someone's organizing community meetings to discuss how they want to be involved. They're not waiting for us to dictate terms. They're participating." William smiled, really smiled, for the first time in weeks. That's the point, isn't it? It was never about us saving them. It's about us working together. Her phone buzzed again. This time, a message from Charles. "Check the evening news. You'll want to see this." They turned on the television just in time to catch the BBC coverage. The anchor's expression was cautiously optimistic as she reported on the announcement. But then the segment cut to man-in-the-street interviews. A young woman in Manchester. "I've never cared about the royals before, but this actually matters." A shopkeeper in Cardiff. "Actions speak louder than words. Let's see if they follow through. But I'm willing to give them a chance." Even the skeptics were engaged rather than dismissive. The conversation had changed. But then the segment took an unexpected turn. The anchor's expression became serious. However, controversy continues to swirl around the palace. A new leak this evening suggests deep personal rifts remain within the family, with sources claiming that today's united front was carefully staged. Catherine felt her stomach sink. Of course, they'd had one good day. One moment of genuine progress, and whoever was undermining them wasn't going to let it stand. The leaked details were specific again. Too specific. A conversation between William and Catherine from just last night, discussing their fears about the foundation failing. Private doubts shared in what they thought was the safety of their own home. William's face went pale. That conversation was in our bedroom. Just the two of us. No staff. No one. Catherine's mind raced. If the leak wasn't from staff, and it wasn't from the family members who'd been in those other meetings, then how? How were their private conversations being monitored? She looked around their sitting room, at the antique furniture that had been there since before they moved in, at the portraits on the walls, at the very architecture of the palace itself. "The rooms," she whispered. "Someone's bugged the rooms. William stood abruptly. That's impossible. Security sweeps for that. When was the last sweep? Catherine asked. William's expression answered the question. It had been months, maybe longer. They'd been so focused on external threats that they'd forgotten to check for internal vulnerabilities. Within an hour, a specialized team was conducting a full electronic sweep of their private quarters. Catherine and William waited in the garden, watching through the windows as technicians moved through their home with equipment. If this is true, William said quietly, someone went to enormous effort. This isn't casual gossip. This is espionage, but why? Catherine asked. What's the endgame? Destroy the monarchy completely. What does anyone gain from that? William was about to answer when his phone rang. It was Charles, his voice tight with barely controlled fury. They found devices. 4 of them. In my study, in Camilla's dressing room. Someone's been listening to everything for months. Catherine closed her eyes. Every private moment, every vulnerable conversation, every doubt and fear, it had all been recorded, cataloged, weaponized against them. Do they know who installed them? William asked. Security is reviewing access logs now. But William, there's something else. They found the same devices at Harry's old residence, from before he left. Whoever did this was gathering intelligence on the entire family. The pieces started falling into place in Catherine's mind. This wasn't about destroying the monarchy. It was about controlling it. About having leverage over the most powerful family in Britain. But for what purpose? An hour later, they had their answer. Security identified an unusual pattern of access across multiple royal residences. Always the same time windows. Always when the family was away, and always authorized by credentials that had been stolen from a senior staff member months ago. But it was the identity of who'd been using those credentials that shocked them all. A tabloid journalist. Not just any journalist, but one who'd been writing increasingly accurate inside stories for over a year. The one who always seemed to know things before anyone else. Who'd built a career on royal exclusives. How did we not see this? William asked, staring at the security report. Because we were looking in the wrong direction, Catherine said. We assumed the leak was someone in the family or close staff. We never considered industrial espionage. Charles appeared at the door, Camilla beside him. They both looked shell-shocked. The journalist has been arrested, Charles said. But the damage is done. Every private conversation we've had for months is potentially out there. Not potentially, Camilla corrected, holding up her phone. Definitely. His publication is promising the biggest royal exposure in history.
How?
William demanded. Unless we abdicate, Camilla finished quietly. All of us, Charles, William, the whole line, they want to force a referendum on abolishing the monarchy entirely. The room fell silent. This was it. The end game. Not just damaging the royals, but ending the institution itself. And they had the ammunition to do it. Private conversations taken out of context. Doubts and fears that everyone has but monarchs aren't supposed to admit. Moments of weakness that would be spun as incompetence. Catherine looked at each of them. Charles, who'd waited his whole life to be king. William, who'd reluctantly accepted his destiny. Camilla, who'd endured decades of public hatred to stand by the man she loved. And herself, the commoner who'd married into this impossible situation? No, she said firmly. They all looked at her. You don't negotiate with extortion, she continued. We don't give them the satisfaction. Yes, they have recordings. Yes, it's going to be ugly, but we did nothing wrong. We had private conversations like every human being on earth. We expressed doubts like anyone facing enormous pressure would, and we kept working anyway. Catherine Charles started. She's right, William interrupted. We've spent weeks building a narrative of authenticity, of being real people, trying to do good work. Well, here's our chance to prove it. We don't hide from the leaks. We own them. You're suggesting we preempt their expose? Camilla asked. Suggesting we release the recordings ourselves, William said. All of them. We publish everything before they can. We frame it our way. We show people that we're human. We struggle, we doubt, but we keep serving anyway. It was insane. It was risky. It would expose every vulnerable moment they'd had. But looking at their faces, Catherine could see they knew it was the only way forward. No more secrets. No more carefully managed image. Just truth, raw and uncomfortable and real. They spent the next 48 hours preparing. Legal teams reviewed every recording for security issues. Communications staff crafted statements. And Catherine, William, Charles, and Camilla sat down together to record one more conversation. This one intentional. They talked about their fears, about the pressure of their roles, about loving their country but struggling with the weight of expectation, about being imperfect people in an institution that demanded perfection. They didn't perform. They didn't polish. They just talked. The release was scheduled for Sunday evening. Catherine sat with her children, explaining in age-appropriate terms what was about to happen. That people would hear Mummy and Daddy talking about difficult things. That some people might be angry or critical, but that telling the truth was always the right choice. Even when it was hard, when the recordings went live, the internet exploded. But something unexpected happened. Instead of outrage, there was recognition. People heard themselves in those conversations. The struggles, the doubts, the determination to keep going despite fear. A hashtag started trending, Royals are human. The journalists' publication still released their version, but it landed flat. The scandal they'd promised felt manufactured compared to the honest vulnerability the family had. Already shown, the approval ratings climbed. Not to 50% overnight, not to 60, but they rose. More importantly, the conversation shifted. People weren't debating whether to abolish the monarchy. They were debating how to help it evolve. 3 months later, the Royal Futures Foundation opened its first community center in a converted royal estate. Catherine stood at the ribbon cutting, looking at the faces of people who would use this space. Job seekers, single parents, students. All of them there because a family had chosen to risk everything rather than protect an image. William took her hand. "We did it," he whispered. "We survived," she corrected. "But the real work is just beginning." And it was. But for the first time in months, maybe years, the future felt possible. Not certain, not easy.